Well, this week we are moving from our adventures in Paris and the fine restaurant and the rat in Ratatouille off to Monstropolis and the Fear Factory. And as we continue our July series of Faith, Trust, and Pixie Dust, the spiritual wisdom of Disney. And our movie today is Monsters, Inc. Monsters, Inc. And my talk is, what are you really afraid of? What are you really afraid of? And this is a story of how the factory uses fear as a tool for fuel before realizing how inefficient fear really is, and that laughter and joy are the true power. So we'll explore fear today. We're going to look at that and see if maybe it's an inefficient tool in our life also. And I'll be sharing some things with us at the end in our practicing the principles, a process that we can use to maybe dissolve some of those fears. So let's jump into our movie. The movie centers on two monsters that are employed at Monsters, Inc., which is the factory, and the top scarer in the whole company is James P. Sully Sullivan and his one-eyed partner and best friend, Mike Wazowski. So those are our two main characters, and the city, of course, is Monstropolis, and it is inhabited entirely by monsters, and is powered by electricity, which is generated by the screams of human children. And they access the human world through the closet doors in the kids' bedrooms. Anybody ever thought there was a ghost or a monster in the closet, under the bed? Yeah, so they're playing on that fear in this movie. And they scare them and they harvest their screams. So when the kids scream, the monsters sneak in, they scare the kids scream, and then somehow they capture that energy into these tanks on the factory side of the closet door. So it's all about the scream amount of capacity that they can harvest. Now this is considered very dangerous work at the factory because the children, they have been told, are toxic. The monsters can't touch the children can't touch the monsters. So they're toxic. So they're very afraid of them. And energy production in the factory is starting to fall because the children just don't scare as easily. They're becoming a little more sophisticated, aren't they? Well, and the chairman of the company, Henry J. Waternoose, is determined to find a solution. And Sully is in a fierce rivalry with the chameleon-like monster Randall Boggs for the top position as the top scarer in the company. So these are wonderful characters, aren't they? They just really run the gamut of everything that we see in our life in corporate America and jobs and everything else that's out there. We have Sully, who is the biggest and the scariest monster that they have, with the biggest roar and the biggest heart. He really is just a big softy. And then his little partner, Mike, who is small and twitchy. Anybody seen the movie? Yeah, he's kind of twitchy, isn't he? Just a little nervousy. And he's always pushing Sully, though, to do better. He's kind of hitched his success to Sully to be his gravy train, maybe, but to be that support for him that he's not having. He's always pushing him to do better and do more. And then we have Randall, the mean and nasty, never plays fair, never plays by the rule chameleon. And he is just hates being second to Sully. He just really does. So he's always trying to figure out better ways to scare. And then we have Mr. Waternoose. And I think of him as that old-fashioned banker that we see in old movies. He's got the red vest and the bow tie, and he talks very formally. But there's something about him, even in the beginning of the show, that you just wonder, something a little bit off. And it might be the beady eyes, all five of them. All five of them. So one day, Sully discovers that Randall has left the door activated on the scare floor, and a small girl has entered the factory. Now remember, they believe she's toxic. After desperate failed attempts to put her back, and Sully takes her home with him because he can't let her run around the factory, right? Now his best friend Mike is out on a date with his girlfriend Celia. And they're having a marvelous time. But Sully has to go in with the child in a bag to get Mike's help. Help me solve this problem. She's got to go back. We got to get her back. And I can't figure it out by myself. Well, the child escapes in the restaurant amongst all the monsters. And mayhem it comes about, and Mike and Sully then finally get her back. But the CDA, the Child Detection Agency, they're like the hazmat team, right? You got this toxic child running around, so the hazmat team shows up. And what Sully and Mike are discovering, though, is that this little girl that they're around, she's not toxic. She's not dangerous. They feel okay. They don't feel sick. A fear that they have is not true. Has that ever happened? Have you ever had that aha moment where there's something in your life that you've been horribly afraid of that you found out wasn't true? And there was a complete shift in your perspective. I'm reminded of a story of my sister that we went to the Grand Canyon out to Peach Springs, where that big bridge thing is with the glass on it that you overlook the canyon. And we were going to walk out there, and frankly, I had forgotten that she has this horrible fear of heights. She never mentioned it, right? So we get all the way out there, and we're at the end of the little bridge, and as we start walking, we get just over the edge of the canyon, where the canyon drops off, the ground's gone, and now you're glass looking down through the bottom. Anybody been out there? Yeah, you're like 2 miles up in the air looking straight down through glass. And she froze. And I thought, okay, now I get to talk her down. So I turned to start to talk to her, and about that time, one of the guards that was on the bridge walked up. It was a Native American gentleman, and he got really close to her. And I could see the trust that was instantly in her. So I backed away a little bit and just watched and listened as he had this conversation with her. And I continued on out on the bridge, fully expecting I would come out the other side, have to go get her and pull her back this way, right? But as I'm out there on the end of the bridge at the very furthest point, she walks up beside me. And she's giddy. She's absolutely giddy. Because whatever the experience she had had with that gentleman, he had basically talked her through her fear of heights to where she walked out there and was able to stand and enjoy that beautiful vista. And we had an eagle fly by, which, it's like, how much could we order that one up? It was just perfect. But it actually moved her through that phobia of hers, and she realized there was nothing to fear, that she was safe. And I think that's what the gentleman kept saying to her, was, you're safe, you're okay, you're safe, you're completely safe. So she's broken through that phobia, she's broken through that fear. That thing which she believed and held on to for so long, she's found is not true, and it's changed her life. It's changed her perspective. So that's much of what's happening here with our monsters, when they're realizing children are not toxic. Why would they tell us this? Why would they tell us this? So we can recognize when we're in fear sometimes when our emotions start to come up, can't we? We might recognize it as pure fear. We might recognize it as anger. A lot of times, anger is a mask for fear, isn't it? That we'll use that as opposed to allowing our fear to show through. And we can sometimes feel like a victim when we're in that condition, can't we? Like life is happening to us. Like we have no choice. Why does this always happen to me? All been there. Life starts throwing us a bunch of curveballs, and it feels like, why me? Why me? And that's that victim energy. And sometimes we feel like we're the victim of society, a boss, a company, a government, maybe even God. What's your monster in your closet that makes you feel like you have no control over something? What's your monster in the closet when you feel like a victim? And I think this is represented in our show by the little character Mike, because Mike is always counting on Sully, isn't he? He's always counting on Sully rather than making his own decisions and his own choices. One example of this is they're walking to work one day, and Mike is like, hey, Sully, let's drive. I want to drive my car. Let's drive the car to work today. And Sully goes, nope, we're walking. And he goes, no, really, I want to drive the car. The cars are meant to be driven. Let's drive. And Sully goes, nope, we're walking. And then you can see, Sully goes, no, really, we're walking. But Mike is holding on there, holding on really to what he wants to do, but then he lets go and he allows Sully to have him walk, and we feel his victim pouty kind of energy around that. So Mike is the representation of that. And some of us can feel that way about spirit in our life sometimes, that it's just this series of obstacles and trap doors that are put before us, and these hard lessons that we have to struggle through and learn through and make our way through, going through this thing called Earth School. Yet, is that true? Is that true? Is life hard and a struggle, or are we here to simply reveal the divine through us and as us, to live in the joy and the peace and the harmony that is spirit? Fortunately, most of us do not live in this area of victim. We can all go there, but most of us don't live there for the most part. We live in a little more empowered place, maybe like Mr. Waternoose. He's in control. He's in charge. He's running the factory. He's got his life going on. He's directing the law of his life, right? He's manifesting good. He's manifesting financial wealth. He's got employees. He's got the energy coming. So we would call this in this second kingdom of consciousness. Anybody heard of the 4 kingdoms of consciousness? The 4 realms of consciousness? The victim is the first one. Done to me. It's done to me. I have no choice. The second one is this one. It's by me. I can manifest. I can create. I can use this power of the law of mind to make my life more comfortable. Yes, absolutely, we can. And we call this the place of princes, palaces, and parking spaces, right? Yeah, we do. But what can happen in there? Remember my conversation about wonky manifestations? Yeah, when we think we're praying about and creating this and it shows up like this. It's like, well, that wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Well, it's because we've got some unhealed fears, perhaps, that are working inside of us that we haven't quite let go of completely. So we have that sticky seed, as I call it. If we're planting a watermelon seed and it's got a lot of gunk on it, it may not grow the healthiest of watermelons. So we sometimes have our ideas that we're planting into the divine mind may be covered with some old fears, some old beliefs that cause it to be a little wonky on the manifestation side. So that's our kingdom too. So let's move on. Sully grows attached to this little girl and he names her Boo. And he's noticed that when she laughs or giggles, there's a power surge. He's not quite sure what that's about. He's not quite sure what that's about, but he has noticed it because the lights go out and things happen and power surges. Now, interestingly, little Boo is not afraid of any of these monsters. She comes into this strange place, out of her bedroom into a factory. She's not afraid. The first thing she sees is Sully. She reaches up to him and she says, "Kitty." That's not fear. The only thing she fears is Randall, because Randall was her monster, and he taught her to fear him when he came through the closet so that she would scream. So he taught her, so that's the only one. She wasn't afraid of anybody else that didn't look like her. She wasn't afraid of anybody else. So our story goes on, and they're trying to kidnap the little girl on both sides. Sully's trying to keep her safe, and Randall's trying to kidnap her. He's got some stuff that he's working on, and it's a whole long story of chases and all of that sort of stuff. But they end up taking Boo back up into the warehouse area where all of the doors are stored when they're not being accessed. When they're accessed, they're activated with power, so they're all just kind of dead, not energized doors up in this big area. And they're riding this conveyor system very quickly through this warehouse area. And as they do, Boo is giggling and laughing. She thinks this is the most fun ride on the planet. I'm sure Disney has since created this in one of their theme parks. But what they notice is that when she's laughing and giggling, the doors get energized. And now they're able to open them even up in the warehouse area. So they're able to run this chase scene back and forth between the human realm and the cartoon realm. And in one of those, they get Randall trapped. So Randall's out of the way now. So he's our villain, right? He's our villain, and he's gone. So as we come back into the factory, everything blows up. Mr. Waternoose is in cahoots with Randall, so the CBA arrests him and takes him away, but the factory closes, and there's an energy crisis. And they do get Boo back home to her room, so she's fine. But what happens is that Sully finally begins to put together this idea of the laughter and the giggles generating more power than the screams. So Sully brings that idea to the board of directors and turns the company around and actually becomes the CEO of the company, and it becomes a laugh factory. It becomes a laugh factory. So now all the monsters are trained to go through the closet doors and make the children laugh. To make the children laugh, because they realize that laughter is 10 times more powerful than screams. More powerful than screams. So we have another happy ending. Everything works out just fine. And these are all these heroes' journey stories, aren't they? That we've been studying with Disney, and the way that they bring these stories together and demonstrate these experiences in life that many of us, we witness or we participate in. And then we have a hero, we have the villains, we have the chase scenes. So they're all very similar in that. But when we look at these ending scenes with Sully and the way that he's showing up, I think he's demonstrating the third kingdom of consciousness, the third level of consciousness, which is described as through us, where we no longer feel separate from our source, we no longer feel separate from spirit, we feel connected and in the one, and life is unfolding through us. And it's like our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, says, that God can only do for us what we allow God to do through us. God can only do for us what we allow God to do for us. And through his love of Boo, that love that he developed of Boo, Sully has unburdened himself from his fears. From the children are toxic, they're not. And he's for the first time seeing the unity of life, as opposed to going through the doors and having to scare children. He's seeing that unity of trying to make them laugh. There's a little different energy there, isn't there? If you're trying to make someone laugh, as opposed to trying to make someone be afraid, there's a little different energy there. Celia knows this well. So many of us have experienced this level on our spiritual journey. Yes? This third kingdom of spirit through us, that infinite unity and wholeness, that interconnectedness of life. Much of what we've seen in the news in the past few weeks and up until even this morning connects us with compassion with our fellow human beings. We may not know any of the affected people, but yet we feel that connection and compassion heart to heart with them, don't we? We feel that connection with them. We feel their pain. And I know that we don't always see these good news stories splashed across our news media and splashed across our Facebook pages, but there was one that I saw this week that I want to share with you, because it's indicative of, I think, what the change is, that if we start focusing on what it is we want to see more of this, we start focusing on that and not the violence and not the pain and not the suffering. We're focusing on peace, as Suzanne did this morning with her prayer that she brought in for us. We focus on what we want to have more of in our life. So this gentleman, it's a story about a police officer in Little Rock, Arkansas, who is making a difference in his community. His name's Tommy Norman, and he's a 17-year veteran on the North Little Rock, Arkansas police force. And he was living a pretty quiet life up until he was discovered on Instagram by an Atlanta rapper. And then his little Instagrams and videos and images and things went viral. They went viral because he's interacting with this community. He's building relationships with the people in the community. He's playing an active role in their lives, not just law and order, but really connecting with the people. And this is not something that he just started in light of what's been happening in the media. This is something he's been doing for his entire 17-year career. It's just now gotten noticed and brought to the front page. He's making a difference. He's being a beneficial presence in the world through connecting with the citizens of his district that he works in, of the area that he works in. And we can all learn, I think, from Officer Norman. We can all learn from him of showing up and making a difference in the world. And we can do that in little ways. We can do that in each and every moment of our day and each and every interaction that we have. You go to the dry cleaners. Are you just simply giving them your ticket and picking up your laundry, or are you connecting with people? How about the grocery store? Are you connecting with people? Are you making eye contact with the checkers and the baggers? Are you connecting with people? Are you making a difference in someone's life? That's what it's about. That's how we establish and maintain our unity and our oneness and our knowingness of each other. It's like the monsters getting to know Boo. Once they got to know her, they realized she's not toxic. What was our quote the other day about the travel being fatal to intolerance or something? I can't remember who said that. But it's true. When we get to know each other, we no longer are afraid of each other. We're no longer afraid of each other. So we build unity one relationship at a time. One relationship at a time. So if you're familiar with the four kingdoms, you're probably going, how's she going to get to number 4? She doesn't have any monsters left. Well, I'm going to jump to Boo, because I think Boo really is indicative of the kingdom 4 consciousness, which is as me, which is spirit expressing as me, as my life. Absolutely anchored and grounded in that wholeness, in that oneness. Now, little Boo is about 2 years old, and she's fearless, right? Again, she wasn't afraid of any of those monsters except Randall, who had taught her to be afraid of him. She was not afraid of the biggest, scariest monster in the factory. She just called him Kitty. Just called him Kitty. So he's much more terrified of her than she is of him. Who have you been told is toxic? What fears have you developed that may not be true? What monsters are in your closet? This 4th kingdom is a place that many of us have visited at times in that level of consciousness, but we probably haven't quite mastered living there, right? Probably haven't quite mastered living there. But we've been there enough to recognize our true nature is joy, is love, is that interconnectedness with each other, wholeness, perfection, freedom. That's that higher level of consciousness that we strive for on the spiritual journey. On the spiritual journey. And I think about the journey because that was what was going on with Boo also. She was just enjoying everything that was happening in this whole adventure. From the time she stepped through the closet, it's all about the journey that she's experiencing and what's happening around her. She's completely trusting of Sully. She's laughing and giggling along the way and just enjoying her journey. It's not her that's saying, I want to go home. It's Sully saying, I need to put you back. I need to put you back. Remember Dorothy in our Wizard of Oz series. Dorothy's whole focus was, I want to go home. And she had all of her people helping her to get home. But Boo's not that way. Boo's just enjoying the journey. So she's up in that kingdom 4, level 4 consciousness. That level 4. So this 4 kingdoms of consciousness is based on Reverend Marcia Sutton's work. And she says that our consciousness is a little bit like a blob, and that it moves around in all 4 of these. And there may be a little more of it in one or the other at different times, but it kind of just moves around in each one of those. Because we can all, again, go back to being a victim. We can go back to feeling like we've got no choice, feeling like life's just not in our court today. But we don't stay there. We don't live there. And that's the to me. It's being done to me. And the second, of course, is the being done by me. I'm creating. I'm manifesting all of the good in my life. Look what I'm doing. When in fact we know that is spirit that manifests through us. And that's kingdom 3. Through me. Letting go of fear and separation and moving into unity. and allowing Spirit to work in our life and work through us, to be aware and conscious and present to the ideas that come through us, to take the actions, to treat and move our feet, to actually do the work of moving forward on our evolutionary journey to wholeness. And then ASME, number 4, Kingdom 4, living in the one, we finally released any remaining separation. We've released any fears that we may be hanging on to, those deep buried ones that maybe we've suppressed somewhere along the line. And that the presence within us, and we move from knowing the truth to being the truth. To being the truth. And standing in that. And we reach this place through prayer, meditation, ritual process. So, much like meditation, when we notice that we're in these various kingdoms, remember in meditation, if you notice thoughts coming in, what do? We let it go, and we go back to our breath. The same here. If you notice that you're in a victim awareness, a victim consciousness, notice, isn't that interesting? I can move to Kingdom 2 by making a choice. I can choose how I'm going to show up in this interaction so I don't feel like a victim. I can choose how I'm going to participate. I can choose to step back from it. I can choose to see a higher principle here. We have that power of choice, and when we make those choices, we change our thinking and we change our life, don't we? Because our whole perspective shifts in that moment. So I want to move into our practicing the principles this week. Many of you have asked for the slide to be left up. What we've decided to do is we're going to put it up at the end of service, so that after service, if you want to come take a picture, you can do that. And I think it's a brilliant idea, actually. Can I give you all credit for it? That you take a picture of it, and we all carry our phones, right? So you've got it to use and do the practice all week. Right there is a photograph in your phone that you can tap back into. It is available on the website, but I know that's an extra step. You don't want to go to the website, that's fine. Take the picture, but we'll put it up at the end of service and leave that after Michael sings us out. So just listen and receive at the moment. Although I do like the paparazzi. Kidding. All right, this is a process that I've been using. And it's a process that combines many of the different practices that we do on a regular basis in our community. And this has been working very well for me to really get down deep and below some of the, maybe more hidden beliefs that I have that haven't realized. But I've realized because of the manifestations that I'm seeing. Okay? So the first step is, if you are dealing with a situation or decision that you need to make, a change perhaps that you need to make, maybe it's in career, maybe it's money, health, relationship, any sort of challenge or change that we want to make, the first question to ask yourself is, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? And this is going into some Kingdom 4 work. What am I afraid of? Now, the first thing that's going to come up is your mind's going to start hitting all those really easy answers for you, right? Stay with it. Keep asking the question, what am I afraid of? And you'll notice as you go through this, it's almost like going down stair steps. Because when you say, what am I afraid of? Oh, I'm afraid of, whatever, not having enough money. And then you'll say, no, that's not it. Because we're not getting that truth bell within us that lets us know that's the truth. So we'll self-select those things as we begin to go deeper and deeper and continue to ask the question, what am I afraid of? No, that's not it. What am I afraid of? Until we finally get to the place of silence and the bell goes off and we know, that's it. That's it. And then once we get to that part, I do suggest you write these down for yourself as you're going through the process. Use your journaling work, because you'll be able to see how you move through these different layers. Once you get there, ask yourself the next question, which is, now there's this, as you go through this, I'm saying, once the storm is over, because there's going to be a whole lot of stuff, and you're going to get to that place of silence. Then ask at that last bottom rung, is this true? Is this true? Because we're tapping into our higher wisdom. We're tapping into spirit. We're tapping into, is this true? And it may or may not be. There may be more that you're going through and developing, and you'll get more answers. And continue to ask that question, is this true? Until once again, we're at silence. There's no more answers coming. And then step 4, once we are in that absolute stillness, once we are in that place of, this is what I'm afraid of, and this is why, then the last step is there anything else? Is there anything else? And that question has a tendency to open us up, because we don't like a vacuum. We don't like unanswered questions. Our mind doesn't. So it's now open and connected. Is there anything else? And some of my biggest some of my biggest revelations have come in that question. Oh, there it is. That's the gong. That's not just the bell. That's the gong that goes, oh, that's it. That's it. That's it. And then we have that place within us that we can reveal and heal. We can reveal and heal. And our final step in the process is gratitude. Absolute gratitude, a sense of deep, heartfelt gratitude for the guidance of your inner wisdom. For the guidance of your inner wisdom, which is always, always, always available to us in this place of stillness. Always available to us. It's a good process. It takes a while. You have to commit to doing it. It may take you 30 minutes or an hour, but it's worth it. If you're struggling with something, remember our picture of Mike wanting to drive the car? That's where we are. This is where we want to be. It's hard to receive all that we want to receive when we've got one hand closed hanging on to the past. It's that leap of faith, isn't it? Knowing that Spirit is the net that we are seeking. So dissolving our fear of change leads us to experience our true power and freedom, making it easier to laugh and experience our true nature, which is joy. Our true nature is joy. Life's not meant to be difficult. And we discover, like Sully did, that laughter is 10 times more powerful than fear. So I invite you into this practice this week with me, and to the daily meditation and affirmative prayer. And just know that dissolving our fears helps us to move from fear to faith and to living in this state of grace. So I would invite you to join me now as we anchor this in prayer today, as we just go within and we recognize that, yes, there is only one power, one presence, one life, and that life is God. It is the power and presence of the universe. It is the infinite. It is so large and beyond anything that we can imagine that we just simply call it God. We call it essence. We call it life itself expressing. And it is all of those qualities of love and joy and peace and harmony, balance, prosperity, wisdom, and intelligence. And all of it is here now present, in, through, and as each one of us, as an expression of it. For we are expressions of Spirit in form. We are life expressing. And we are peace. We are wholeness. We are harmony, joy. We are love. So from this place of recognizing that absolute truth of each and every one in this room, I speak my word for and about us, knowing, claiming, and accepting the grace that is our life, the love that is our life, the peace that is our life, and that we are a place of change on our planet. As we walk our talk, as we connect with each other in that love, in knowing the God within, in that namaste place, not just with those we know, but with everyone we encounter. For everyone we encounter is God in expression. And I know that if anyone has anything on their heart this day that they are dealing with or struggling with or seeking support on or just simply flat out grateful for, we lift that into this light and love and this prayerful consciousness and know that it is made whole, perfect, and complete in this moment. For that is what Spirit is and who we are. So it is in great gratitude, thankful heart for all that has come forward this day that I just simply release this prayer into the action of law, knowing that it is done, accepting that it is so, that it is already complete in the mind of God. I just release it, I let it be, and we anchor this together by affirming, and so it is.